Okay, we're not judging this. I just got this pack, so I'm testing it out. I'm not gonna tape everything down before I see if I want to keep it. This morning I was thinking about how effective propaganda can be, and how most of us don't even realize how affected we have been by, or how affected we are by propaganda. When people ask me why I joined the military, I always tell them in a joking kind of way, oh well, I played a lot of military video games growing up, SOCOM Navy SEALs, and I attribute SOCOM to US Navy SEALs to be like the main reason it sparked an interest in the military for me. And now looking back at it 16 years later, I'm like, oh, that was propaganda. It got me, it did what it was trying to do. A lot of those games were funded by the federal government, contracts from the federal government in some form or fashion, and they did exactly, it worked exactly as planned for me. So it's kind of just sad and funny at the same time, I guess. Thinking about it, I'm thinking about all the different ways that video games and movies and TV shows try to portray life in the military, and I was thinking about some of the inaccuracies. There's a lot. I mean, we could go into every single inaccuracy. We'd be here for 12 hours, but I'm trying to think of some of the big ones. The ones that stand out to me are in damn near every single military movie you watch. They will portray, higher ups, officers, and enlisted as like drill instructors or drill sergeants. Like they talk to everyone like right away. Like it's very aggressive and yelling and assertive, and that's just not how life is once you leave like a training environment. Once you're outside of basic training and maybe some basic combat training and maybe MOS school, people just don't tend to talk to each other that way in most commands. You'll have someone every now and then who tries to get a little aggressive and tries to be this super drill instructor-y person, but for the most part, people just talk to people like, like normal dudes and dudettes. There's some colorful language we use in the military, of course. Insults every now and then, but for the most part, it's like, hey man, did you get that thing done? No. Hey, did you count the gear? No, Sergeant. No, I didn't. All right, get to it right now. We can't leave until it's done. That kind of, like, it's not, you're not in boot camp for 4 years or 20 years of your career. That always cracks me up when you're watching a military movie and it's like someone's a sergeant and they're reporting up to their captain and they're like, yes sir, right away sir. And it's like, good God, man, like calm down. Like, you've got enough stressful stuff going on. You don't have to be super duper gung-ho. Now, of course, we'll say sir and we'll address people by, it's not this super rigid way of speaking like they try to make it seem in movies. Another one that always kind of cracks me up is how everyone, once they get through basic training, is a war machine. Like they're super fit, they're super deadly, they can hit a pin needle from 500 yards away with iron sights, and it's like, I don't think people realize how basic the basic training requirements are, and that there's yes, if you go to boot camp and you're not in shape, you will get in better shape, 100%. But if you go to boot camp and you're like a track athlete who can do 50 push-ups and 15 pull-ups, you're probably not gonna get much more in shape at boot camp Now there will be certain things that you can do better. You'll be able to ruck with weight a little better than you could, maybe. But like for the most part, they're not. Boot camp isn't a physical break off. At least it's not for if you're already in some sort of shape. And so you're not gonna come out of there like a special operations soldier ready to kill, you know, like you just have the basic knowledge that it takes to be in your branch of service. You can maybe run a couple miles without dying. You can do some push-ups, some sit-ups, some planks, pull-ups. You can probably yell pretty loud because at boot camp you probably have to be yelling most of the time. And you can march, like you know how to march, and you know some basics of military tactics, but that's it. Don't think you're gonna get through boot camp and come out like John Rambo. It's just not gonna happen. Another thing movies and shows like to focus on is just the infantry side of the military, which you could argue for sure is our main line of effort most of the time. But they don't usually touch on all of the stuff that has to go on in the background, all the different jobs and stuff, which is fine. That stuff's not exciting, so it makes sense that they wouldn't have it in military movies. Hey, check this out. Beautiful. But yeah, so all the non-infantry MOSs don't get a lot of attention, and understandably so. But it always makes me go, when the infantry guys are like, we're alone and unafraid out here. It's like, yeah, but you're being constantly supplied every week, but with ammo, and water and electricity and batteries and food from 600 different people. Like a platoon is being supported by, you know, hundreds of other people in the background, and you don't realize that unless you're in the military and you've experienced any kind of operations. Oh my God, awards in movies. They'll be like, Sergeant Kilgore has slain 50 enemies and captured 2 and led to a decisive victory on the battlefield. And the general will like walk up and give him a silver star. Like, no, that's not how it works, dude. It's like there's so much bureaucracy and paperwork that goes into even the lower level awards for valor. It's like asinine. It's so absurd. And in movies you don't see it too much, I guess, in modern movies, but more like some of the World War II and stuff. And maybe back then it was more okay, and they did it back then. But yeah, just them walking up and being like, we're getting you a Medal of Honor. It's like, okay, that's gonna take 4 years to get that Medal of Honor, to get it processed. 4 years minimum, because they have to do all of the paperwork, and then they have to do all of the witness statements, and they have to do all of the impact boards to see, like, all right, well, is it high enough impact and high enough risk and high enough valor to be considered a Medal of Honor? You can't objectify it. Like, it's not an objective decision. It's subjective to people's opinions, and it takes years. Like think about the last couple dudes in the Marine Corps, at least, who have gotten Medals of Honor. They were living Medal of Honor recipients. Like, Dakota Meyer was out of the Marine Corps by the time he got his Medal of Honor awarded to him. He was out and working. Like, he was working his civilian job by the time they finally got the award approved, and they were like, all right, the president's gonna award you a Medal of Honor. I think fucking geese, they're flying. There they go. I swear that same flock has been flying south for the winter for like 6 weeks. But anyway, yeah, awards just don't work. Awards just don't work like that. Well, here I found something really rare. It's called an IPA hemlock. Yeah, they grow 1 can of IPA per year, And if you're lucky and they're open like this due to damage from fire, you can actually harvest it. Let me see. The next unrealistic thing portrayed in movies is uniforms. And I'm sure every single veteran and active duty and reserve service member is going to agree with me on this. But there is always something wrong with the uniforms. It's either they're not fitted properly to the actor, the ribbons are wrong, they're wearing like enlisted and officer rank insignia at the same time. It's crazy to me how you could pluck an E3 from any of the branches of service and say, hey, I'll give you $30 to tell me what's wrong with this uniform for this movie so we don't look like fools. And they would be able to do it. Because when you go to boot camp, you learn the ins and outs of your uniform. At least for the Marines we did. And it's like there's always something wrong. And it's so easy to spot if you're in the military. Now civilians probably can't see it. Like they don't know. And it's fine. Like most of your audience is going to be civilians. But at the same time, you could probably say, hey Marine, we're shooting a fucking war movie. Do you want to be a part of it? Marine will go, yeah. Be like, we can't pay you. The Marine will be like, okay. And then you give him like a small extra part. You just let him be an extra that gets blown up or something. And then you say, all right, we let you have 5 seconds of screen time. You got blown up. And now I want you to sit here and make sure that all of our uniforms look good because this is about Marines. Okay. You know what I mean? Like it would be so easy. And they make these big mistakes. I think there's a few movies that get pretty damn close to perfection with uniforms. Taking Chance, I've only seen that once and it was a long time ago, but I remember thinking, oh wow, like they must have had someone come and consult because the alphas on Kevin Bacon, like they look solid. They fit him really well, his ribbons were right. I think his rank and everything was correct. So it was pretty solid in that movie, but there aren't a lot of movies where they nail it. The next thing that movies have a hard time getting correct in portraying, and that's because it's really hard to portray it not in a real life scenario, is the fog of war. So the fog of war is any physical and mental lack of clarity while in a combat situation. So it can be literal things, like physical things like dust and smoke, sound, debris, literal fog, like the weather, the elements, all these different things that just make a scene chaotic can add to the fog of war. But then when danger is close or something really crazy happens, our brains go into survival mode and add to it. We're not thinking clearly, we are thinking survival. And you don't see that very often in movies. Now, some of the more recent movies, 1917 and All Quiet on the Western Front, I would even say Lone Survivor does a decent job at portraying like just the utter chaos and lack of direction. Because I remember in some of those movies, they're asking, where are they? Where are they? And it's like, yeah, a lot of the time you just don't see them. You just don't know. You don't know where you're getting shot at from. That's the Horn of Gondor. Boromir. Sounds incredible. Nice. So I'm walking around this. I don't know if it's a state park, but it's like a wildlife preserve, I think, or a historic landmark. And there's this lady, and she has, I don't even know what the instrument is, but it's super long. It looks like some sort of Celtic horn or something, but it's so long that like she's playing it standing up and the other end of it is on the ground. And it's like a long tube, like tan color. I don't know what it is. I'll have to look it up when I get home. but it sounds ethereal. It's like you can hear it everywhere. Like I was 200 yards away, I could hear it as if it was right beside me. It was an incredible sound. And just she's playing just this beautiful song. Really awesome, really awesome. But it's starting to rain, and I don't have waterproof anything, so I'm gonna head back to my car now. Frosty's gonna melt. Oh, it's raining now. It's raining. We're running. I got like a quarter mile to go. Oh, hold on. I got another one. In movies, you don't like see stuff not working. Like all the military gear that they have, it'll just be like perfectly functioning for weeks and months on end. You don't see them doing maintenance on it very often. Like very few movies will show soldiers cleaning their weapon outside of basic training. And you're like, oh, they just never jam. They never jam. They never break. Like they don't have a spring break inside the gun. The trucks never break down. It's like these things that we spend so many countless man hours trying to maintain all the time, because it's like a 40-year-old piece of equipment, and we're gonna maintain it so it can be used 4 times and then break again. It's a fun little, like, I'll sit there and in my head, I don't say this stuff out loud, but in my head I'm like, oh yeah, that's a one-use thing. Like you're gonna use that thing one time, it's gonna break or get corroded or something, and it's gonna have to go back into maintenance or get a part replaced because that's just the kind of gear that we work with a lot of the time. And they depict food in the military as like not super great, which is pretty, I would say that's pretty accurate. Although I don't have an issue with MREs. The issue comes from when you eat them every day for weeks. It's like, I don't hate MREs every now and then. If I gotta need an MRE, 1 or 2 MREs every couple of months or whatever, it's not a big deal. You can get through, and you can make MREs taste pretty damn good if you mix the right things together, you cook them up right, you know, when you got time for that. But when you eat them every day, every meal, every day, for weeks, your digestive system lets you know, and it is not a fun time. If I get PTSD from anything, it's going to be those post-field op MRE poops. Well, now I think it's time to go home and shower and get some coffee and just hang out with my family. Happy Sunday.